Okay, good morning, everyone. Woody, would you please? Okay, so this is, good morning, everyone. This is the House Republican Caucus. It is Tuesday, January 27th at about 10:40 a.m. And if you'll notice, we don't have Teresa in the seat. We are now being clerked by Nigel Hicks Tibbles. So welcome, Nigel. Okay, so just a few things from the leadership meeting at 9:30 this morning. Senate 23, as you heard this morning, is being postponed one day. It's an amendment to what the House amended. We amended it, we sent it to the Senate, and the Senate sent it back with another amendment. So I don't know if the next step is if they don't agree, which I don't believe that they've even spoken about it yet.
Second.
Might be like a committee of conference if they don't agree with it. So stay tuned on that one. As you heard today, our new floor times are Tuesdays at 10, Wednesdays and Thursdays will be at 3:30. And Friday will be at 9:30. Reasoning I've been given to move it to 3:30 is it gives committees an extra half an hour between 1 and 3:15-ish. So let's see.
BAA.
Oh, there's yeah. So I guess the we have that respect in the workplace meeting, the discrimination panel, prevention panel, I should say. And people gave feedback, and some people thought they were a bit confused between the three panels. So Elizabeth Burrows is coming up with kind of like a one-pager that describes the discrimination prevention panel, the sexual harassment prevention panel, and the ethics panel, so that it will kind of talk about the policies, what they are, and how you would go about submitting a complaint. So stay tuned for that. That should be coming out. As you're aware, today there was a single point of entry for those. Your badge will get you in the loading dock, the Lincoln hallway right here, and then right across the way here is another way that you could get in and through a spiral staircase, get up to the second floor. So those are your points of entry always, but for the public, they need to use the loading dock. And I guess plans are in the works at some point. I don't know if you recall last year, I think the scaffolding was up so that when the snow fell off the roof, it didn't hit anybody in the head. This year it's gone. So there are plans in the works for kind of enclosing that little short walkway so people don't get bonked in the head when the ice and snow fall off. So stay tuned for that. The Budget Adjustment Act, I believe, was passed out of committee. I'm looking at Marty. Is Marty here?
She'll be here.
Okay. So we have John and Wayne and Lynn here. Passed out yesterday. My understanding is it's unanimous. So that will be up for action on Thursday and Friday. So I guess we can wait until Marty gets here. If people have questions.
Page 790.
790. That was the one that came out on the floor today. It was kind of a wonky way of her saying, and it was the appropriations bill. Okay. And then again, JFO, I think you're waiting on the JFO highlight sheet, which is really informative, the ups and downs, what happened in the BAA, what the requests from the governor were, what it finally passed out of committee. So that is not quite complete yet. Stay tuned for that. And once again, decorum in the chamber, and I'll say in committees as well. I know in our committee, we have to raise our hand and wait to be acknowledged by the chair. And like you get in the hopper wherever you're whenever you raise your hand. So similarly on the floor, a few things, when you stand up to speak, you speak to the speaker. Even if you're asking John Kosenska a question, you are going to look at the speaker and everything goes to her and through her to John. So it's that triangular effect. If you remember from your orientation days, there will be a triangle between you, the speaker, and the person you are interrogating. So that's a big one because I can, we sit in the back, we can pretty much see everything. And I don't know, 85% of the people are just looking at John, not looking at the speaker.
Don't ask any questions.
And I, at times I confess I do the same thing. So just keep looking at the speaker though. And also if you are going to explain your vote, if you have a vote explanation during a roll call vote, you first vote and you vote yes. And I would like to explain my vote. You need to let the clerk know that you are going to explain your vote. And when you do explain your vote, it should be rare that you actually explain your vote and brief. And I will at some point get you, there's a little packet of vote explanations. It's a pink packet and there's probably about 5 lines on it. That's pretty much the briefness to which you should write. Not quite sure how small you can write. That is how, that's about the length of how you should explain your vote on the floor. And did I miss any?
I think that's it.
Okay,
Good job.
so that's all we have for the leadership update for today. Does anyone have any bills or anything that they'd like to bring before our caucus that they're working on or having signed? You have people want to sign on because I believe the deadline is the 31st of January. So if you have one in your possession, usually get it in a pink envelope and you want signatures, you have until January 31st to get that.
I mean, I already sent it through, so
Okay.
It's a very minor thing. So I did put forth a bill that will allow a last, was it 24, we passed this law where even if you live on top of Mount Mansfield, you have to disclose whether your house has been flooded or not and give a link or something to the flood data. Well, this creates a real issue when you're dealing with someone who's never lived on the property. I worked in foreclosures a lot. These people have never even set foot on the property. So this bill is very simple. It just allows a seller of the property to notify a buyer in writing they've not lived on the property. That's it. Pretty basic.
Okay. Anybody else? Anything?
Hey,
Yes.
270 is on the
H
notice.
270?
Yeah, is on the notice calendar.
Okay,
I just so the caucus knows it's a bill. There's no money attached to it or anything. What it does is protect the confidentiality of a peer-to-peer, peer counseling. And an example of that is a fire. Let's say a fireman goes to a fire, several people are killed. He or she happens to be in the room where, they find somebody and the body is all burnt up and they get bothered by it. So they have peer counseling on these things. They want to make sure that confidentiality is protected. There are certain times, if they're in a peer counseling session, where someone might talk about committing suicide, or somebody might talk about taking someone else's life. They're so mad at them. And they're the exception. You can report that, just like a mandated reporter would report it.
okay.
So it's not
And
a big deal, but
okay, noticed it passed out 11-0 out of committee.
yeah,
So
11-0.
it's the whole committee voted for that.
Val was gonna gonna do the bill on the floor.
Yep. Who's presenting?
Val, what is it?
Looters?
I thought Val was doing it.
I think it's Looter. Looters?
Karen's? Well, I thought Val was gonna do it.
Looters?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, okay. And then, I know that there's another one on notice, which is the approval of the amendments to the charter of the town of Essex, which voted out of committee 1100, and Sandy Pincinot will be, reporting that tomorrow as well. So those two bills are, unanimous out of committee. So I see Marty's here. Marty, did you want to talk at all about the BAA?
Exactly.
Okay.
Round. This is the highlight sheet.
All right.
Yeah. I'm gonna hand over here. The Appropriations Committee met on Monday and did the final approval of the BAA. 11-0. We all agreed that it's a very common sense arrangement. There's very little that had to be changed. So anyway, we did it. We passed it out on Monday. It will be on the floor Thursday and Friday. Because it's so simple, it was decided by the speaker, we didn't need to have a caucus of the whole, which is why I'm trying to explain it to you here today. But obviously we can answer any questions that you may have. Basically, the governor suggested an extra 40 million in expenses, and we suggested an extra 47. There was a slight difference. We had an extra $50,000. Oh, coming this way. Did everybody get a copy? It's that way. No, I'm wrong. Okay.
But we need
5 more.
to share.
So close. Okay, so close.
We can share. We'll share it, Mark.
The big change is we received a big upgrade in July. Everybody remembers it was an $80 million upgrade in July in terms of the revenue forecast. It went down slightly in January. They said, no, it's only going to be, whatever, it's 8 million less. But therefore, we had this increase in terms of the revenue forecast. And we did some transfers among the general fund, and we are still reserving 74 million to be used for, our language says, to mitigate the lack of federal funds or property tax relief or any other uses the public body deems appropriate. And so we had a total of 2.885 to 2.885 in the general fund to use. And we have used it all except about $18,000. There are a lot of changes that are mentioned down below. And again, our net changes were very, very close exactly to the governor changes, but we just moved some things around. We decreased some, we increased some, we pulled some funds from other places. And we moved some general fund to other places. As an example, there was $3 million in there in order to do the property reappraisals. It's an amount that is typically taken out of the general fund to go out to municipalities to help them with reappraisals. We decided to take that money from the pilot fund rather than the general fund this year because the pilot fund is contributed by municipalities and it goes back to municipalities. So we took that money from there. We needed the $3 million change because we needed an extra $3 million in the pension funds. The federally funded teachers who were funded by ESSER funds, that their pension amounts gets paid in a different way, and that had not been accommodated. But because of the lack of ESSER funds, we had to come up with that $3 million in order to cover that. We have to cover our pension funds.
So the payment in lieu of taxes, a decrease of 3 million?
No, there's a fund that exists.
Correct.
Payment in lieu of taxes.
Correct.
We are spending 3 million out of that in order to help with property tax, the property valuation.
So that those towns that have state-owned buildings that are assessed an amount by the state, the ones that say, oh, this is only worth X amount enough. Is their property, the monies they receive for pilot going to be reduced?
No,
Okay.
the pilot fund, we talked about this last year. The pilot fund is very, very healthy. It didn't used to be healthy. You're absolutely right. It didn't used to be able to reimburse towns as lately as they should have, but it has become very healthy recently.
Okay.
Last year, we took $1 million. Last year, we changed the proportion so the communities kept 75 instead of just 70.
Okay.
Because it had grown, it had become very healthy, so we allowed municipalities to keep more of it. But we took some money out of it last year in order to help communities to stabilize their grand list if they had been damaged by floods and that sort of thing and lost property up there. So this is another use in which we think the communities will benefit from it because we're asking them to, reappraise properties and that sort of thing. And we do that anyway, but this was an extra payment. And we decided instead of taking that from the general fund, we would take it from the pilot.
Okay.
And we do have a spreadsheet of all of the pilot fund stuff, and it's still a very healthy account.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, the pilot fund is now funded by the local option tax that goes to the state. And we started getting local option taxes, they got that 30% for the state to go into that fund. So that's why there's excess money in there, extra money. When they changed it last year to 75% to 25%, that was to help the places like this. And sponsored originally by someone from Barry who wanted to go and get more money for flood mitigation. So there's a logic behind that, and that passed. So they still get 25%, but even though it's a smaller amount, more towns have gotten local option taxes. It's a fund that's helping because of the local option tax.
Okay.
So we took 3 million of that, put it for the pensions for the federal paid employees in the schools, who otherwise would need to have money contributed to their pensions. The federal government pays school district, the school district pays the state, because we, instead of paying directly to the state, they do it through the school district.
It's a complicated process, but anyway, we're trying to balance out that.
The issue with Texas London teachers' retirement, is that a one-time occurrence?
Over there, I don't understand.
Lynn, what do you
I
think?
don't know that one time, I'm not sure if it's just us, I mean, if you have a special ed teacher who's totally funded for Title I or something, that would be a federally funded teacher. And there is a way to go and do this, but we know we have to make sure we make that pension payment because our pensions are so low, especially for the teachers. So we have to make sure we have money to do that.
I think the problem is that ESSER funds had decreased. Before it was flowing through the ESSER funds, but now the ESSER funds have decreased, and so we had to make up the difference.
Margaret.
Marty, that $870,000 figure for overtime for state police, how much of that is attributed to the Burlington?
About 100,
About 100,000.
about 100 was attributed to the Burlington special circumstance.
Thank you.
The rest of it is simply because we don't have as many state police as we would like to have, so people are working overtime. And also it covers the PSAP people who, again, we don't have enough people in that function. So the people who work 12-hour shifts automatically have 4 hours of overtime. There's a whole list here of changes we made. There were no real controversies on any of them. We made slight adjustments. The governor, as an example, had asked for a certain amount of money to help for nursing homes that had extraordinary financial risk or something like that. But we, rather than giving the full 14 million there, we reduced it a bit because there had some money that had been had not been appropriately appropriated to the Aries Agency on Aging with the rate increase we had. So we just shuffled that money around a little bit to come out even. There were some concerns, perhaps some of you are in communities that have recovery centers. There was a discrepancy between what the recovery centers expected to receive out of a total of $800,000 and the way the state actually allocated that money. So we felt that we needed to make those agencies whole, or those SSAs whole. So we covered that amount in there. Joe, do you have something?
No, I'll leave it. You'll probably answer.
Oh. There were some, we did what you will not see in the numbers, because remember last year, we set aside $50 million in case there would be some shortfalls in federal funding. And we gave the Agency of Administration the authority to go to the Emergency Board and ask for some of that to be shifted. They did take $6 million out of that in order to cover the SNAP funding. We are now authorizing them in the language to take $5 million from that to use to help shore up Section 8 housing vouchers that are in danger of being decreased because of the cutback of federal funding. And we want to keep the number of vouchers that we have stable, because future funding depends upon the number that you have. And so if you decrease the number that you have, it's kind of a downward spiral at that point. So we are taking $5 million from that $50 million that was set aside last year for this purpose and doing that. But it doesn't show up in your numbers because it's money that was reserved last year and it's sitting in a separate pot of money. We're plugging the hole in the criminal history records check fund. Some of you have probably complained about the time it takes to get credit, to get criminal record checks, fingerprint checks, that kind of stuff. There's a backlog in what they're trying to do. But that's kind of irrelevant to the point that the fees that come in don't cover the personnel that's needed in order to do it. So the special fund into which those fees go has a deficit. We are closing that deficit. It's $1 million. But we are asking the department to come up with a plan of how they think they can mitigate this in the future, what we need to do to have a more sustainable plan in there. We did put another $400,000 for the program of Vermonters Feeding Vermonters, which is money that goes to farmers to produce food that ends up going through the various food shelves. And that's a program. They had asked for 1.5 million. Came up with 400,000. Anyway, if there's anything else here you have questions about, I'll be glad to explain it to you. Again, we made a very small change from what the governor had recommended. We are certainly staying within our revenue. We are spending what revenue we have. There's like $18,000 left on the bottom line after we have reserved this 75 that the governor had suggested it goes to education. We will eventually decide where it goes, but it's being reserved.
Just a clarification. So the 1.32 million general fund to the Housing Opportunity Program Partners, the Sustained Homelessness Prevention Services, what does that exactly do? It's the second bullet point from the bottom on the first page.
Yeah. Housing Opportunity Program. Those are going. Whatever you remember.
Yeah, that's hot money.
It's hot.
There's a list of about 12 different centers that will get money for homelessness different, these two buckets, one to recovery centers, because there was an issue with recovery centers. I'm not sure if it was hot money, but we had a language for both of those. There's like 6 recovery centers and there's like 12 homeless organizations.
So those are like shelters? Is that what it's for? Okay. And then secondly and lastly, the bullet point below it, the 1.9, almost $2 million to the Wyndham Center's Crisis Stabilization Program. So is there like must be a specific issue in Wyndham where there's?
No, that's the juvenile secure center that had.
Yes.
Parts of the state.
Yep. Got it. Got it. All right. Thank you.
Okay.
And
Lynn and Wayne and
John,
John and I are all on the page.
yes, so if you have any questions, like when we leave here, you can certainly reach out to Marty. Wayne Dickinson, Wayne LaRush, or John Cosenza, because they serve on the committee. Grab them at breakfast or lunch or whenever. Okay, text them, email. Did anybody else have another question on this? Are there any other questions for the? No. Okay.